how's farming been this summer?
Bad. Well, I say that, but it hasn't been bad.
See, I didn't know that you guys were covering a whole field. So when I found out just like a few weeks ago.
Fields, plural.
Oh, that's,
almost all of them.
So we have all of our ingredients for our gazpacho.
Gazpacho.
And I'm gonna cut them up. So Abraham's just gonna play with the camera and watch me cut up. Because a lot of times, maybe you're not gonna be playing with the camera. Because a lot of times Abraham is always doing the prep, and I feel like I dumped that on you, so.
You think so? Thanks. I don't feel like sometimes I'm like, am I doing any work at all?
You always are my prep person. So there's a lot of prep in gazpacho, but it's so worth it, and you get to use all the fresh, yummy, fresh.
All the fresh.
All the fresh ingredients. I'm gonna get busy cutting up. No cutting up from you.
And cut.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the tomatoes.
Explain it like I'm 5, a quick rundown of all the mishmash.
Okay.
But don't be too complicated, don't give me too much information.
Okay.
You got 30 seconds.
Okay. We need fresh cut tomatoes, fresh cut onion, jalapeno, garlic, lime juice, fresh herbs, and cucumbers, and you always have to have tomato juice. So I'm gonna start with cutting up the tomatoes, put it in with the tomato juice, and flavor that and let that sit while I'm cutting up everything else.
All right.
So when we were cutting up tomatoes earlier today, and we found some Roma tomatoes that look like this, that were from your farm, and you said, no, we're not gonna use them.
They looked underripe.
Then these do too. But
if you look at the outside, they have kind of that yellowish streaking. So then we just tried it. It's delicious.
It's crazy delicious. I mean, I never would have thought that tomato tasted like this by looking at it.
Yeah.
So.
Looks can be deceiving. Yummers. That's a good gazpacho tomato.
What kind of tomatoes are these?
This tomato is a new variety we grew this year. I don't know if we'll grow it again next year, but that's not because it's not delicious or fun to grow.
Then why wouldn't you grow it?
We're doing different tomatoes next year.
You're exploring the tomato world.
We're gonna reduce the amount of tomatoes we're doing next year regardless. We have to worry about making money on the farm, but these ones are productive, delicious, and beautiful. This is called Hot Streak. We got it from Johnny's. It's a little expensive, it's a hybrid, but it is awesome. It's beautiful.
Okay, but so then it still doesn't tell me why would you stop growing this if it's
because tomatoes are a pain in the ass to grow, and I'm tired of growing tomatoes when other people grow tomatoes and do a great job, and
you're sweating bullets over the tomatoes that you just.
We're doing too much of other things.
Okay.
So we're gonna focus more on, other things that sell and that we are excited by, and you'll see more of that when that happens. Don't want to spoil the fun.
So we're sampling a lot of different tomatoes from different farmers and different places, and they're all different, and they all have their unique qualities. And Abraham's talking about why he's not going to be growing much tomatoes.
I was just saying that I feel like the heirloom type tomatoes, everybody loves them, everybody wants them, but I've always found that growing them is always worse. They're not as productive.
Worse, more difficult, you mean?
More difficult. The quality is not really there because they've been interbred for so many years that they're just kind of blah.
Okay.
People really love them and people want the heirloom open pollinated varieties, but because the open pollinated varieties that people get are ones that are 100 years old, there's no variation added to those tomatoes' genes.
So it doesn't evolve for the better.
It evolves, right, but not necessarily for the better. It doesn't improve in the same way that like a hybrid does. Lots of people are skeptical of hybrids, and I definitely can understand that, but I think that there's a lot of concern that's overblown about hybrids. And with hybrids, usually hybrids are bred to be more, like when something tastes good that's local, usually it has more nutrients in it.
Right.
So a hybrid's gonna taste better, it's gonna have more vigor, it's gonna be less food waste. And I just think they're just better. At home, you can take hybrids, save the seeds of any tomato, and you'll get, if you plant all the seeds, you'll get random tomatoes, for example. They'll be totally random, but eventually you'll find some that are like the ones you want to keep. And if you save those, then you have a new variety. right? Any open pollinated variety was at one point a hybrid between two plants that were different. Am I losing you?
Long gone, long gone. I'm thinking about tomatoes and making gazpacho, but
Gazpacho.
I think you delivered a lot of really good information, but my capacity to process that information is diminished right now. Okay, so I'm gonna add salt, Tabasco, Worcestershire sauce, which is
vegan Worcestershire. Is it?
Fish sauce. No, I'm kidding. No.
Oh my God, you got me. I was like, no.
You do that to me every time when something has cocoa butter, and you're like, it has cocoa butter.
You really got me on that one.
I did?
Yeah. Well, my heart rate went up.
Will you open that tomato juice for me?
Ooh. Then we'll simmer this for 20 minutes.
You don't cook gazpacho. Okay, so it is a soup, so you want soup. So I'm eyeballing it here. It really is. This is definitely one of those things. You just see how much of whatever you want to put into it and go from there. Okay, so I'm gonna put some black pepper in there too and lime juice. All right, so we're gonna add chopped parsley and we're gonna add micro cilantro from the farm. I think we're gonna add this at the end. I don't want to stir it in. I'm gonna stir this in and this is gonna be a garnish.
Good idea.
So you can see what I've got going on here. I'm gonna finish it up with the parsley in a minute, but I wanted you to see I have a full jalapeno there and we put in some of the ribs and seed. I have 2 cucumbers. I have about a half of a red onion. I have about maybe a full golden bell pepper and a bunch of tomatoes. I'm gonna get it all stirred up and then I'm gonna let it sit and then I'm gonna adjust the seasonings after it's had a chance to marry.
So I don't normally like gazpacho, so Mom didn't know that.
I just now found out, so apparently he's not very excited about this.
It looks beautiful.
It is gorgeous, and it's so fresh. Did we talk about how fresh it is?
That's really good.
I drizzled a little, maybe, what did I put? Half a teaspoon of olive oil in there.
Maybe a teaspoon. This is the best gazpacho I've ever had.
Good. Definitely let it sit in the fridge and do its thing. Wow, that micro cilantro, I never get it when I go to the market. It has such a coriander flavor, which is different than cilantro. Has both.
We never have described it to people like that, but that's a good way to describe it. I think it's funny that we've never said that to people.
Because you get a little taste of the coriander and you get a little taste of the cilantro.
Well, they're the same plant, right?
No, I know, but they have 2 different flavors. So years ago, I did an illustrated recipe for They Draw and Cook of gazpacho. And it was just, I loved it. It turned out really cool. And then I realized, and they published it on their website, and I'll leave a link for it below. And I realized in my illustrated recipe, I completely forgot cucumbers.
Well, now there's a secret ingredient in the recipe that they won't know about. My eyes are watering
From the pepper?
from the soup.
Bernie Sanders.
That's Stephen Colbert's impression of Bernie Sanders.
That's true.
That's
You're right.
It's a good one. I think it's funny.
That is, you're right. It's Abraham's impression of Stephen Colbert's impression of Bernie Sanders. And how's farming been this summer?
Bad. Well, I say that, but it hasn't been bad.
See, I didn't know that you guys were covering a whole field. So when I found out just like a few weeks ago.
Fields, plural.
Oh, that's
Almost all of them.
Tell the viewer why you were having to do that.
Our weeds have been a complete nightmare because we did certain things that we thought were smart that weren't. We didn't have experience, so we didn't make informed decisions about that. And we have to tarp a lot of our fields to get rid of the weeds without making the problem worse. Some people might say, oh, just go through and till it. There's a lot of reasons why we don't till, but if you till it, it doesn't actually make the problem better. It kind of kicks the can down the road. So we're gonna do it right, take our time to do it, but it does sort of hurt that, you feel like a bad farmer a little bit, which I know is not true, but
don't all farmers go through this?
All farmers go through all sorts of different things.
Right.
Crop failures, disease, pests,
Right.
infrastructure failures.
Right.
I know people whose greenhouses will rip apart in storms or things like that. And there's a lot of things like that happen to certain farmers. They'll know why it happened and how to prevent it, but sometimes they cut corners because the job is really, really hard. Even if you're doing it perfectly,
it's still exhausting.
It's something that people will never fully understand unless they do the job,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Which makes sense.
Well, thanks for sharing the story about the farm. I just found it out. I felt bad for you guys because I couldn't understand why the stand was looking a little different than last year. And I was
Sparse.
Like, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
where's your bok choy?
Where's your carrots? Yeah.
Where are your carrots? Where are
Yeah.
all your radishes and your beets? And
Where's all your vegetables?
But you have a lot of flowers and the microgreens, and that's
Right.
the microgreens are your biggest seller.
We want, and so are flowers, but we want to add more variety next year. But it's been hard, but that's, you know, not surprising. It's just difficult to have to go through all that. But we're doing a lot of things that are gonna hopefully make our lives easier for our future selves. We will see.
Yeah. We started filming at the beginning of the year, and we had anticipated that we would come up to the farm and get some shots and do some things.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff for shooting videos, and it just didn't happen because you guys had an obstacle that I didn't know about. And it just, the timing of it. All right, gazpacho done, and we'll see.